August 15th, 2014. This was the official release date of Duelist Alliance and the introduction to our topic. Shaddoll had a playstyle that we had never seen before. Every main deck monster was a flip effect, and they also had a secondary effect that triggered if it was sent to the graveyard by card effect. Not to mention one of the strongest rosters for an introduction for a core set. Shaddoll has Recovery in Falco, Consistency in Hedgehog and Beast, Flexibility in Squamata, a creative removal option in Dragon, and it has one of the best control style boss monsters in Shaddoll Winda. Plus it basically had one of the best extenders slash finishers that you can ask for in Shaddoll Construct. Then with that came what might have been the best fusion spell ever, Shaddoll Fusion, along with Sinister Shadow Games and Shaddoll Core for extra support. Duelist Alliance was without a doubt a complete reset of the game. It changed everything about the meta. Some people argue that it's honestly the most impactful set of all time, and if you would disagree, then it's at least top 3. Now, along with Shaddolls, there's a couple more important names that we have to bring up, those being Satellar Knights and Burning Abyss. Now, if released alone, either Burning Abyss or Shaddolls would have been a tier 0 deck in their respective formats. But considering Burning Abyss wasn't quite at its peak yet, Shaddoll simply just took the format for itself. See, Shaddoll Winda granted too much control in a format that really wasn't equipped to deal with a 2200 monster that couldn't be destroyed by card effects, that also prevented you from special summoning more than once. Not to mention, when you finally kill this thing, it would just recycle Shaddoll Fusion, which would just repeat that process. You see, this was an issue, but it wasn't even the number one reason why Shaddolls did what it could. This deck would rarely care if it had to go first or second, because Shaddoll ran a Chaos Engine. It would end the duel on the very first turn consistently. The combination of Shaddoll Fusion being a double Foolish Burial and Construct being able to support 2 of the best attributes of all time was a little overwhelming. Something simple like Shaddoll Fusion plus White Dragon could end the duel right there from pure advantage. Shaddoll Fusion would put Squamata and Eclipse Wyvern in the graveyard to summon Construct. Squamata and Construct would both send, and Eclipse Wyvern would banish Dark Arm Dragon, and I think you see where things are going from here. Basically, this was too much for the meta at the time, and because of that, we can see YCS Toronto Shaddolls took a whopping 50% of the top 32, 16 decks, followed by Burning Abyss with 9 spots and Satellar Knights coming in with 7 spots. No other deck could get into top cut at these events. Now, unfortunately, in 2014 and some early 2015, Konami used sealed only play at YCS level events to decide top 16, so we don't actually have standings for what happened after that. Maybe Shaddoll could have taken all top 16, we don't know. But considering YCS Dallas came October 5th, very soon after, Shaddoll took a 47% ratio of the top 32, 15 decks. It's obvious what was the best deck of this format. Now, to shake things up a little bit, November 7th, 2014, new Challenger was released, and that changed the meta in a big way. Although giving a huge boost to the reigning deck, Shaddoll, giving him Shekinaga, Shaddoll Fusion, which is just a quick play fusion option, plus a good answer to control decks in Denko Sekka. Burning Abyss also got well-needed tools in the new Synchro, the Tuner, Cowcabbed out back row, Fire Lake, which was crazy, and all it really did was wipe 3 cards and it gave him the ability to float. Plus they also got Alec, which can finally answer Winda by turning it off for a turn and letting it go back live shortly after, effectively only blocking out your opponent. The competition was here. New Challenger kept to its namesake and introduced Cleafort. This deck would change the legacy of Shaddoll forever. And to see this become a rock, paper, scissor format where Burning Abyss would counter Clee would counter Shaddoll, and Shaddoll would counter Burning Abyss, where the issue lied is that Shaddoll's counter was a lot more effective. See, yes, Winda was still an issue, Denko Sekka could stop Burning Abyss from stalling you out, but Construct was much less of a kill switch now. BA had too many options to float into, not to mention their ability to finally answer Winda with the newly introduced strategies like Alech and Karma Cut, and Cleafort was actually a perfect counter for Shaddolls. They could constantly drop 2400 beaters that could easily swing right over Winda and make it a non-factor. Also, their floodgates pretty much shut down any shenanigans that Shaddoll could really do with their Chaos Engine. There wasn't much going off. One dragon pop isn't enough to get rid of all of those floodgates. Now, saying this, obviously Shaddoll was still a top deck, and the only large event we have that took place during this period of time was YCS Anaheim in November 23rd, 2014, where the shift in power did become evident. Burning Abyss took the most places at 11 out of the top 32. Klee was a close second, taking 10 out of the top 32, and Shaddoll held 9 spots in the top 32, with Teller Knights falling behind with the last 2 slots. Now, it's close, but Shaddoll clearly had some competition in this format, although it was short-lived because very soon a new set would come out and break up this extremely balanced format. January 2015 brought us Secrets of Eternity. What some may consider an underwhelming set, it would become a nightmare for Shaddolls because Qliphort got much more powerful. It got staple tools in Monolith, which gained unlimited advantage, and a pretty unstoppable card in Stealth, which literally couldn't be responded to. Plus, BA had more answers with Farfa, so not much Shaddoll really could do, considering the only thing that they got in this set was El Shaddoll Wendigo. Finally, for an honorable mention, this set also offered fantastic legacy support in Blaze Accelerator Reload and introduced us Infernoid, which didn't make a huge impact right away, but it still deserves a mention. With this blatant disrespect called a set release for Shaddoll, it finally became evident that power had shifted. YCS Charleston was near, and Shaddoll took 1 of the top 32 in this event. An Artifact Shaddoll variant piloted by Alone, and I apologize for the pronunciation if it's wrong, Mark Balaban, with an 8-2 record after Swiss. Remember, top 32 and top 16 were a little different back in the days, but Shaddoll seemed to be nearing the end of its run. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, Secret Forces were right around the corner. Finally, February 12th comes around, and this might have been the most terrifying time for Shaddoll players. The metagame was completely ruined by the release of Necros, and this reflected on the Judgment Day for Shaddolls being February 15th, only 2 days after Necros became legal in the TCG. Necros took a sickening 22 spots of the top 32, followed by Qliphort at 6 and Burning Abyss at 4. And if you're counting right, that equals 32. Shaddoll could not secure a single seat at the table in the top 32. And honestly, when you look at the Necros deck, you can see why. It seemed like it was almost designed to just destroy Shaddoll. Jin, the releaser of Rituals, was basically an auto-win button. Trishula, Unicorn, Brio, Colossus, every one of these cards easily out at window without any effort. Plus, with the other 2 decks getting some much needed buffs in the previous set, when Shaddoll were ignored completely, it just couldn't stick with the big boys anymore. But there was a hope. April 2015 ban list came to breathe a little bit of life in this dying format that kind of left Shaddolls way behind. Konami blessed Shaddolls with the limited tour guide, Preparation of Rites, Skill Drain went to 1, Sacrifice went to 1, and then they also semi-limited Necros of Brionic and Qliphort Scout. Now, admittedly, this didn't fix everything that caused Shaddolls to slip out of the competitive format, but it helped a little bit. Now, Necros still had Jin, which was basically an auto-win button for almost every deck that didn't main deck and out, as well as Valkyris and numerous outs for any Shaddolls control options and any ways to stop their OTK options. Losing 2 copies of Preparation and 1 copy of Brio dented the consistency, but it's one of the most consistent decks of all time. A little dent isn't enough to push it out of the meta, but there were hope. More importantly, BA and Klee losing valuable pieces helped a ton. Shaddoll had to adapt a little bit, but it just got really back to its old tricks. It brought back the Chaos variant and the Control variant that got it most of the success that brought it to this point in the first place. But in this format, it had to max out on things like Mistake and Vanity's Emptiness to try to stop Necros' pure consistency and turn all those cards into bricks. Now, admittedly, Mistake wasn't a good matchup against Burning Abyss, but it had a little bit of notoriety against Qliphort. This wasn't a huge deal, though. If you look into the side deck, you can obviously see Majesty's Fiend and Denko Sekka were completely fine to shut down the Burning Abyss' a turn. April 12th came along, didn't change much in the competitive scene, but Shaddoll was able to finally get back into the top 32 of YCSs, pulling a whopping 3 of the top 32 slots. Now, this is impressive compared to its last event, but its original events were unbelievable in comparison. Just to put this into perspective, after all the nerfs, Necros were still pulling 17 slots of the top 32. 53%, which is more than Shaddoll's most powerful format. WCQ season came around and Shaddoll needed to adapt if it wanted to be a competitor. See, Necros were clearly the best deck, there were no arguing that fact. And then finally, June came around, WCQ started, and Shaddoll had no showing in the top 16. It just couldn't adopt the Necros like its Duelist Alliance brethren, Burning Abyss. In the top 64, most notable slots being Necros with a disgusting 35 positions, Burning Abyss taking 13, Klee with 7, and Shaddoll pulling 3, just tying with Ritual Beast. A deck that not many people even considered it a contender. This was a huge failure for what should have been the biggest event for this deck. Shaddoll had everything it needed all the time to prepare to compete with the meta, but it just couldn't pull it off. Especially remembering back when it could take 50% of YCSs with ease. This was what looked like the biggest flop from an original set release. And the definition of a deck that just couldn't adapt. But in the EU, there was a much different story. Shaddoll ended the finals of EU World Championship qualifier playing against the kings of the format, which was Necros, and in one of the most brutal WCQ feature matches. Shaddoll completely destroyed Necros. 2-0, little to no difficulty. The old strategies just came together this time. The Necros player just couldn't do anything. Now, Shaddoll only took 7 of the top 64 slots at this event, but it didn't really matter. This event is probably the #1 factor that contributes to the high pedestal that people put Shaddoll on. It honestly overshadows the slightly above average run that Shaddoll's actually had, but regardless to the amount of success that it could grab, it was success nonetheless, and it was success at the highest level. And obviously we all know how this story goes, and with that level of success comes a price. Now obviously there's not many huge events coming after the World Championship qualifier excluding Worlds, but a few more things that happened. July 2015, a banless season came around. Shrit went to 1, Lavabo Chain went to 0, Jijin, the releaser of Rituals, went to 0. And finally we saw a format that we probably should have had for the WCQ format, just something fair. Now we're just killing time with all this. I might as well get to what we all know is coming. November 2015, with the biggest overcorrection that the game had ever seen, Konami decided to ban El Shaddoll Construct and all the boss monsters of every top deck excluding Dante, and effectively bring the same effect that Duelist Alliance had when it was released into the meta as a whole. Now today, Shaddoll is back and is actually a pretty impressive deck, running an invoked engine, giving it the power that it saw in its Chaos days, but I don't know how we'll see it fare in Master Rule 5. Not many big events going on right now if you know what's happening. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far. Clearly I'm new to this, and if you have any ideas on what I can do better or what I should try next, just let me know in the comment section below. And if you're a fan of this style of video, leave a like so I know to keep going. That's it, and again, thanks for watching.